Hi guys, in this video we're going to be creating a game on Scratch, a sort of Flappy Bird style game which I'm calling Flappy Bat. This is how it works. So we have a little start screen, we press the go button up here and we can see it starts to animate a little bit, and then we click here to start, and then we just have to keep the bat at the right height to fit through the pipes, and if you're successful and it gets through the pipes without hitting them, then when the pipe goes off the screen, our score increases by 1. And if you hit the pipe like so, then it's game over. Okay, so it's a simple game. I'm going to show you in our tutorial today how to make it. Okay, so first of all, we go to Scratch, make sure you're logged in, and then hit Create. That will give you a blank project to create from. First thing we can do is get rid of the Scratch Cat here. We don't want him, and we're going to create our own backdrop first of all for our game. So over here on the stage we've got a backdrop already. I'm going to paint a backdrop, and in here I'm going to use some text. So I'll insert a text box and I'm going to call it Flappy Bat. So I'm going to have actually 2 text boxes, one for Flappy, one for Bat, just so I can arrange them a bit better on the page. First of all, I'm going to make that a lot bigger because I want it to take up most of the screen. That's the title screen, and I can change the fill colour here. I want a nice orangey colour. You can play around with the colour, saturation, the brightness. I'm also going to select it, make sure you've got the select tool on for selecting and moving things around, and I will change the outline and just give it a black outline. I think that looks quite cool. You might also want to change the font. If you want to edit the text or the font, then you go back to the text tool, and there's the font. I'm going to go with this one, Curly. I think looks really cool for this. In fact, what I'm going to do with this word bat, just to save me having to do all of that editing again, changing all those things, I'm just going to make a copy of this. So again, make sure I've got the select arrow chosen there, copy and paste, and then all I'll do is go back to the text tool and edit this to get not Flappy Flap but Flappy Bat. There we go, and I place that in the center of the screen like so. I think that looks about right. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Okay, so we've got our Flappy Bat background. I'll get rid of this other backdrop that I don't need here. And I'm also going to add another background. I'm just going to choose a background for this one, a blue sky background like this. But I might edit it slightly. I'm going to change the fill and make it a gradient fill so it gets lighter as it goes down. So I'll just make this one a little bit darker at the top. Fading to a slightly lighter colour at the bottom. I think that looks really cool. Okay, so I've got my 2 backdrops, my title screen and my main game screen. Right, back to the sprites then. So I need a sprite, and the first sprite is going to be my click to start button. So I need a sprite called click to start, and I'm just going to paint my own one here. So down to the choose a sprite and the little paint tool, and in here I'm going to create just an ellipse to start with, but I think what I'm going to do is just to make it look a little bit less regular, I'm going to use this reshape tool, and I like things to look a little bit more hand drawn. So I'm just going to add a few points on here and just stretch that out, make it look a little bit more wibbly wobbly, as if it's not a perfect ellipse. I'm going to change the fill colour. So let's make that fill colour just white, but I will add a black outline. In fact, I might change the thickness of the outline. You can do that in here. I'm going to make that really nice and thick, nice size 10 thickness. Okay, pop it in the middle of the screen, that's fine. And I'm going to add some text to this as well. So I'm going to write on here, click to start. Oh, you can't see it at the moment because it's white on white. So I need to change the fill colour of that and just make it black. That's perfect. Now I can see that nice and clearly. If you're happy with the font, you can leave it like that. I'm going to change it to this pixel font. I think that looks pretty cool for a game. A bit sort of retro, 80s style text. Lovely. So I've got my click to start button as a sprite, and I'm just going to name the sprite over here on the right start button. Just helps keep things nice and organised. I like to be organised with my coding. So you can see at the moment the click to start button is in the wrong place, so I just need to move that. Click the sprite over here so that you're working with it, and you can then drag it around to where you want it. I might make it a little bit smaller than that. I think I'm just going to make that about 60%. That looks about right now. Okay, so it's just change the size at the beginning to make it the size you want. That's pretty good so far. And now I need a bat as my other sprite. So I'm going to add a sprite in here. I'm going to search for a sprite and choose animals on the top. You can choose whatever you want. You might want to be a cat, or you might want to be a dragonfly or a fish. You can choose. I'm going to go with the bat. Okay, now, so the bat comes with different costumes. If you go to the costumes tab up here on the left, then you can choose the costumes that you want to use. I don't want this one here, whose wings are a bit too low, and I don't want this one because the wings are all wrapped up. I want him to look like he's flying, so I'm going to be animating between those two costumes. So that's perfect. Right, let's get things started. So I'm going to move the bat, make sure I click on the bat down here, and then move him. I'm going to pop him over here for now. Okay, and we need to start coding this. So under events, the first thing I want to do, when the green flag is clicked, then we want this start button to appear. So I'm on the wrong thing actually. I should be editing the start button. I want to do the same thing with the bat in a moment anyway, but the start button's the one I want first of all. So when the green flag is clicked, then I want to show that start button, because I need to put this in because later on I'm going to hide it. When we click it, I want to hide it away so that we move on to our next backdrop and next screen, and we don't have that start button in the way. So I'm going to show it at the beginning so that I can hide it later, and then when you click the flag again, it will show at the beginning. And really I think that is all I need to do with it at the moment to make it appear, but I need to make it work. So I need something to happen when it is clicked. So under events, I'm going to find the one when this sprite is clicked, and at that point I want to hide it. Okay, I want it to go away, and we're going to change the backdrop at this point. So switch the backdrop to blue sky 2. Okay, so we've got our two backdrops in here. We've got backdrop 2 and blue. I could change the name of that, couldn't I, to start screen? That would make things a little bit clearer, and blue sky 2 is fine. Okay, back to our start button. When the sprite is clicked, hide it and switch the backdrop to blue sky 2. Let's just see that in action and test it out. Always a good idea to test it out. So I've pressed my start button. There it is. Nothing seems to have happened so far. If I click it, then it changes the background and the button has disappeared. The bat is still there, so the bat is the thing we're going to edit next. Okay, so at the beginning, I want, just like I did before, I want to show the bat at the beginning. And at the beginning, I want the bat to be full size. So I'm going to set the size at the beginning to 100%. Later on, I think I'm going to make that smaller. I also want to set its position because I'm going to move it later on. So I want to tell it where it should start. So I need to go to motion and set the X and Y positions. Go to X and Y. It's automatically going to fill those numbers in based on where it is on the stage at the moment. So you can see those X and Y figures here, and if I move it around, you'll see that they change. Okay, I'm happy with them there. So we next need to animate it. I want him to be flapping his wings, so I'm going to do that animation. So under control here, we're going to pop it into a little forever loop so that it's always flapping its wings. And we put in next costume. Let's just see what that looks like. Oh my goodness, he's going absolutely mad. So that's a bit crazy at the moment. We don't want him to flap as fast as that, so we need to put in a wait command. That's under control here. Wait, and probably not as long as 1 second, maybe something like 0.3 seconds should be enough. There we go. Now, you can see that I've forgotten something here. Something that's important is that when I click this green button, we need that first backdrop to show. I might do that under my start button here. So let's just pop that in, switch backdrop. So when the green flag is clicked, switch the backdrop to start screen, okay, and then show the start button. Let's just test that. There we go. There's my bat animated, and then if I click to start, brilliant, the backdrop goes away. Let's just test what happens when I press it again, and we're back again. Fantastic, everything seems to be working so far. Now, I want to move the bat and make it smaller, ready for the next stage in the game. So once this button is clicked, I want the bat to change size. Okay, so how am I going to do that? Well, one way that we could do that is to send a message to the bat when this happens. So I'm going to do that in here and under the start button. We're going to broadcast a message that says start game, or just start. You can give it a new message and we'll call it start. Okay, so it's when the sprite is clicked, the button, it hides, switches the backdrop and broadcasts this message. And now when the bat receives that message, when I receive start, then it knows that it has to do something. So it's going to start to follow a series of instructions once it receives that message. First thing I want it to do is set the size. I don't want it to be as big. I'm going to try about 30% and see how that looks. I'm also going to change its position. So I want it to appear somewhere over here. Right, that's a good size, I think, but I want it to appear over here. Let's just see if I move it over there. Yeah, so it's about minus 160 and around about 0. So let's use that, and that's in motion. So we go to about 100 minus 160, and let's set that as 0. Okay, let's test that. Here he is at the beginning. He's there because I told him to go to that position at the beginning. And when I click start, now it's received that message start and it's moved, changed size and moved to the new position. Perfect. I'm happy with the way that's going at the moment. Next thing we want the bat to do is we don't want it always to be staying there. We want it to fall down over time unless you're clicking the mouse button. So I'm going to use another forever loop here so that it's always going to be falling and dropping down on the screen. And all I need to do is, in the motion here, I'm going to change the Y coordinate here, because the Y coordinate, that's the up and down axis, the Y coordinate, and I want it to fall down, so I need a negative number. I'm going to go for something nice and small, something like 1.5. I tested that earlier and that seems to work quite nicely. Let's see what happens. Click to start and there's my bat falling down. But I can't at the moment make him fly back up again. So that's my next challenge to make that happen. Let's see if I can do that. Let's pop another when I receive message in here. So when I receive start, again we're going to be checking now forever whether somebody has pressed the mouse button down. So if they have pressed the mouse button down, we need to sense that. under sensing. If mouse down, then we're going to change that Y position. I'll make it a positive number this time. I'm going to go for a bigger number, going for something like 15. Okay, and we'll see what happens. So click to start, bat starts falling, I press the mouse button and it jumps back up. But if I hold the mouse button down, you can see it shoots straight up to the sky. And that either would make it a bit too hard or a bit too easy. So I'm going to need to do something about that, so that I have to repeatedly click to make it jump up. The way we can do that is just using a wait command in here. Sorry, under control there. Wait. So if the mouse is down, then it changes that, but then it has to wait before it does something else. And I'm going to use this not operator if the mouse is not, sorry, wait, oh no, I've got the wrong thing here. I don't want to just wait, I want to wait until. Let's try that one, wait until, that's better. Wait until the mouse is not down. Let's try that, wait until mouse is not down. We'll see what effect that has. Click to start, and now if I hold the mouse button down, nothing happens, but if I repeatedly click, I can make it move up and then let it fall back down under gravity. So that seems to be working really well so far. Okay, so the next part of our game is going to be creating the pipes that the bat has to make its way through. So I need a new sprite for this, and again I'm going to create my own, paint my own sprite here. And we do this just by using the rectangle tool. This is fairly straightforward, just drawing in a rectangle like so. You can change the fill colour. Might use one of these, give it a, let's have a nice bright green this side, and maybe it's fading to a slightly lighter green on this side. Yeah, like the look of that. And then I'm going to have another little rectangle at the bottom that just finishes it off like so. And in order to repeat that rather than have to make it again, so I can get it the same size, if I use the select tool, select them both, I'll just copy and paste and then use the flip vertical here to flip it the other way up, and I can pop it down at the bottom like this. Now I might need to just adjust the size of this, like the width of that slightly, just to make sure that the bat will fit through. Just have a look, you want the bat to be able to fit through that gap without too much difficulty, otherwise the game gets a bit too hard. Okay, I'm happy with that so far. Now all we're going to do is to create a range of different costumes for this, so that we have pipes at different heights. Okay, so I'm going to call this one just number 1, and then I'm going to right click over here and duplicate that, and then just make a little change to it. So for example, I'm going to move this up and move this up, just making sure that we stay on the bottom of the screen there. That works, so we can see we've got 2 slightly different positions. Let's duplicate that again, and this time I'm going to bring this one right down towards the bottom, and this one I'm going to bring all the way down here as well. Just stretch this pipe up to the top. There we go, so we've got 3 different positions so far. 1, 2 and 3. Let's have another one. Let's do the opposite of this one, so that we have, I'm just going to flip that vertically. Well, that didn't quite work out the way I wanted to. I wonder if I group them first and then flip. No, that didn't work either. Okay, what about if I rotate them around a point? Can I rotate that? Like so. If you hold shift as you rotate, and you can rotate 90 degrees without it going off Okay, let's just move that up a little bit further. Move this up a little bit further. Stretch that up to there. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4. Should we have one more? Let's do one that's a little bit more, a little bit lower down, like so. Bring that down a bit, and just bring that in there. Stay still. There we go. Have that slightly wider gap to make it fair. So we've got 5 different costumes there, slightly different. Now, in order to make these pipes work, what I'm going to do is go back to the code with our sprite selector. I'm just going to name that pipes. But we're not going to use this sprite. We're going to use a clone of this sprite. So when we click the start button, I don't want this to show at all. I want to hide it at the beginning. And we don't want it to appear until it receives that start call. Okay, remember when we click on here, we broadcast start. So when it receives that event, start. I'm still wanting it to be hidden at the moment because I don't want them all. Want this to appear straight away. I'm then going to start creating clones of it. So we're going to forever create a clone of myself. So create a clone of myself is in. Ooh, where is that one? Forever create a clone of myself. I've forgotten where it is. I'm sure you can see it, and you're all. There we go. You're all yelling at the screen. It's there. It's there. Okay, create a clone of myself, and then once it's done that, we just want to wait for a little while before it creates the next one. So you can play around with this timing. I'm going to try about 7 seconds to see how that goes. Okay, so now when it starts as a clone, when I start as a clone, we want that initially to choose one of those costumes. So we're going to pick a random costume. So under looks, if we go switch costume to, and then we're going to pick a random costume. So there we go, pick random. Under operators, pick random one, and we've got 5 different costumes available, 1 to 5. Pick random 1 to 5. So when it starts as a clone, it will switch costume, choose randomly one of those 5 costumes we've got, and then we need to set its Y position. We want its Y position to be in the center, and then we'll tell it where to put its X position in a moment. So its Y position, under motion, set Y to 0, so it appears at the center of the screen vertically. And then we're going to create a variable that we can use. Okay, so under variables, I'm just going to make this one called my X, and just for this sprite only. Okay, not for all sprites, just for this sprite only, it's my X, and that tells it its X position. And we're going to use that to set the X position now. So under motion, we go set X, or is it under variables? Oh yes, there we go, set, ignore that one, set my X to, and I want it to appear right over here on the right hand side of the screen. I know that that side of the screen is 240. So set my X to 240, and then we want to show it. Okay, so this is the point we want it to appear now. Okay, so we switch the costume and pick a random one of those 5 costumes. We set its Y position. We use a variable, myX, which is a local variable, to set its X position to 240 and then make it appear. Okay, and if we run that, we won't actually see it yet because it will be hidden off the side of the screen. So we then need to move it across the screen. The way we're going to do that is with a loop. We're going to use a repeat until loop. One of these, repeat until, and we're going to look for that variable. Repeat until my x is less than a certain number. So I need an operator here, I need a less than. Repeat until, drop in the variable my x is less than, and we want it to be over on this side of the screen. So this side of the screen is minus 240, but I think I'm going to come in just a little bit from there. I'll use the number minus 225. I've tested that, that seems to work quite well. So repeat until my x is less than minus 225, and then it's going to set x to my x. So let's go under motion, set x to my x, and then we've got to change the x position very slowly. So change my x by -1, so it will slowly move across the screen. And let's just see what happens when we do that. So there's our start screen. We click to start, and there we go. Our pipes are starting to move across the screen, just as we wanted to. And every 7 seconds, we should get another one. Okay, and it seems to have chosen the same costume twice in a row, but then it's chosen a different one. But oh, we seem to have a bit of a problem here that they stop at this side, on the left-hand side of the screen. Okay, so that's something we need to try and fix. So what happens when it reaches that side of the screen? Well, we need to delete that clone. Okay, so when it reaches that side of the screen, we're going to delete that clone. Under Control, delete this clone. Okay, let's see if that works. Let's see if that fixes it. Here comes the pipe, and we go across the screen slowly. We're going to try and keep our bat at the right level so it gets through, and hopefully this time when the pipe reaches the left-hand side, it will delete the clone. There we go, it's disappeared. Fantastic. So that's our next problem solved. Right, so what do we need to do next? Well, at this point here, we need to then check if the bat is touching the pipes, don't we? Because if the bat at any point is touching the pipes, then we need to be game over. We're also going to need to set up a score, so we need to make that score variable. So let's start with the score. Under variables, I'm going to create a new variable and call it score. This one is available for all sprites this time. Okay, so I've got a variable score, and I want that score to show at the beginning of the game. So I'm just going to use the bat to do this one. So when the green flag is clicked, I want to set the score to 0. So let's pop that in here. Set score to 0. And in fact, let's hide it to begin with, and then we'll show it when we go into the next screen. So hide the variable score, and then we'll show it when I receive start. So it should only appear at the beginning. There we go. We can also hide this other variable at the beginning, can't we? If we hide, oh, it's not going to be in there. We need to do that under pipes because it's a local variable. So let's do that in here. We want to hide variable my x. There we go. Now we should get rid of that one, and the score shows up once we've clicked the start button. Okay, but we need to now increase our score every time the pipe reaches this side. So all we can do here is within this piece of code here about the clone, we just need to increase the score just before the clone is deleted. So if it's been successful, then the score, change the score by 1. If it hasn't been successful, then we're going to need to check whether the bat has hit the pipe at some point. So in the pipes again, we'll use a control, we'll use an if statement again, and this time we're going to say if, and we put it within this loop here, within this repeat loop, because we want it to keep checking. If it's touching the bat, so we need, if it's touching the bat, where is it going to be? It's sensing, of course, because we're looking to see if it's touching. If touching bat, then we can send a message, we can broadcast game over, and then that will stop adding the score, right? And we can program what happens when it gets the game over message. So let's broadcast, that's under events broadcast, and we'll create a new message, game over. Oops, type there, game over. So what happens if it receives the game over message? Well, let's put this in the pipes first of all. So when I receive game over, then first thing we need to do is stop everything else that's happening in this script. We don't want any more clones to be created at that point. So we need to stop all other scripts in this sprite, and then we're going to need to delete the current clone as well. So we can delete this clone here. Okay. What about the other sprites? Well, the bat, when the bat receives game over, so when the bat receives game over, then the bat needs to hide. We don't want to see the bat at that point. We're going to hide the bat, and again we want to stop all of the other scripts in this sprite. Okay, and that should hopefully work. Let's give that a try. Here's our start screen. We click to start. I'm going to click to make our bat fly. Let's see if we can get this right. Oh, it's got to fit through that narrow gap. This is quite a tricky one. I want to see if the score goes up. Yes, the score goes up, and this time I'm going to crash into the pipe and see what happens. Brilliant. So now we've finished. We just need, finally, a game over screen, and then we're done. Okay, so let's create a sprite that says game over at the end. I'm going to paint my own sprite and just use some text for this and say game over. I quite like that pixel font, so I'm going to stick with that. Nice and big and bold. Let's just move that. Let's move it a little bit more centrally. There we go. Perfect. And so when the green flag is clicked at the beginning, we don't want to see this. So I'm going to hide it right at the start. And we only want the game over to appear when I receive the game over message. So under events, when I receive game over, then we go to show. And that's about it. I think we're done at that point. Let's give it a test and see if it works. So Flappy Bat, click to start. Here we go. Right, see if I can get a score on the board. Fly through the first pipe. Oh, just about. That's tricky. We scored one. Can I score a second one? Score two. Okay, this time I'm going to crash and game over, and it keeps our score up so we know how we've done. So that's it, guys. That's the game. You can, of course, extend it. You can do some other things. You might have noticed at the beginning of the video I had the start button flashing, and it changed when you clicked on it slightly, and I made the game over sign flash at the end. I'll let you have a play with that and see if you can figure out how to do those things. And of course you can choose your own sprite instead of the bat, so you've got you can make the game your own. You don't have to have pipes, as long as you've got some kind of something that your animal has to get through that's moving across the screen. You can do walls, you can do whatever you like. Okay, good luck with this, and watch the video again if you need any pointers, if you can't remember any bits. Hopefully it will help you to make a really cool game of your own, and I look forward to seeing them when you publish them on Scratch. Thanks for watching. See you next time.